Welcome back. Pat Metheny started performing music professionally before he even graduated from high school. It was his guitar playing, not his academics, that got him a full scholarship to college, where he was almost immediately hired as an instructor. At one point, you studied music in Miami, at the University of Miami, at this sort of important period of time then, when there was real experimentation going on. Jaco Pastorius, the great fretless jazz bassist, who went on to be with Weather Report, was there. What was that like going down there? I mean, you'd basically been playing in Kansas your whole young life at that point, and then you go to a very different part of the world. What was that like?
Well, my career as a student at the University of Miami only lasted about 4 days.
Right.
I had just finished faking my way through high school, basically, because I was working nonstop as a junior high student and then a high school student, and really was pretty close to being illiterate, to tell you the truth, because I never studied. I just practiced, like, constantly, and then got to play gigs with great musicians. And my parents were very concerned, and as a parent myself now, I understand in a way that I didn't understand back then. I was kind of a strange kid, and to them, one of the happiest moments of their life was the dean of the University of Miami saw me playing a gig in Kansas City with like an organ trio or something like that, and offered me a full scholarship to go to the University of Miami. And at that point there was like, I wasn't even going to graduate from high school at that point, so they kind of gave me a mercy graduation. Somehow they just gave me a diploma for whatever reason, and I went to the U of M there, and there was no way I was going to be able to do that. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. And it coincidentally was the semester that for the first time the electric guitar was acknowledged as a real instrument. And the University of Miami was only about the third school in the country that had done that. And they had one guitar teacher, and they needed more teachers, so they hired me as a teacher. So rather than being a student there, I taught there for 3 semesters. Yeah. And that first week that I was there, I met Jaco Pastorius, who became really one of my very best friends in life. And our careers paralleled each other. I played on his first record, he played on my first record, and we were inseparable for a few years in there. And really were able to compare notes with each other throughout, in ways that we couldn't with anyone else.
Musicians watching will know, or jazz musicians will know the real book, the sort of fake book that a lot of musicians carry around that have sort of the basic standards out there. Autumn Leaves and all the Miles Davis tunes, Coltrane tunes. I have an old copy of it from the 80s, and it has one of your pieces, April Joy. Perhaps today it has more of your pieces, but I'm curious if that was sort of a moment for you where, because that is sort of like a Bible of the great works of jazz. When your work, because you probably were playing only maybe 10 years by the time your works were showing up in this book. Was that a moment that that was a vindication for you somehow, that you're pushing the envelope, but you were accepted by the mainstream, because that really is about as mainstream as it gets? Maybe you don't even know that you're in the real book.
Well, actually I do, because the story of the real book is kind of an interesting one. The real book was made by a student of mine and a student of Gary Burton's together, who to this day remain nameless.
Right.
And there's actually 6 or 7 of my tunes.
Right, 'cause this is essentially a pirated book.
Yeah.
It breaks all the copyright laws.
Completely.
This is sort of...
And nobody, especially those guys, ever anticipated that it would be anything other than, just, for a bunch of friends, really. And it has become, truly an iconic group of songs. And, by the time they did that, I'd already made a few records. And I would say that for me, the moment that, kind of translates to the sort of, things going way past anything I ever imagined, was the moment that Gary Burton asked me to be in his group when I was 18.
Right.
For me, that was like joining the Beatles. That was my favorite band. That was the band at the time. And Gary in particular, then and now, is probably like in my top 3 improvisers of all time. So to get that call, to be in that band, and then to go on and make records with him and to make my own record for ECM, which kind of came out of that, was something so far beyond anything I ever imagined in a million years. There was a certain kind of like shock to that, to me, that took me a few years to kind of get used to, actually.